I'd like to call the August 13th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting into session. This meeting of the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would like to ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I hear a motion? Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If our guests and members remain standing, we'll take a moment of mayoral privilege. I saw a video recently, and I thought it would be appropriate to take a time of reflection to reflect, let this body reflect of who we are as a nation, who we are as a community, and who we are as people of Rutherford County, the citizens of Rutherford County. I would like to show this and take about 3 minutes of your time, but I think it will be very appropriate. Call on IT to start the video. Well, they won't back it up. Might need some sound. Well, I think we probably just need to pass that. We'll come back and do it before the meeting's over. Let IT continue to work on that. I'm sorry. At this point in time, I'd like to call on our chaplain, Commissioner Gooch, if you would please come and lead us in prayer, opening our prayer, and then to be led by, he will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and to the flag of the state of Tennessee.
Let's go to our Father in prayer. Oh, Father, we love you and we praise your name because we know that all good comes from you. But recently, Father, we have noticed that there is a growing number of people and groups of people who are preaching that what is good is actually bad, and what is bad is actually good. But we know that America is a great nation because we are a good nation. And when we cease to be good, we will cease to be great. And so, Father, we want you to know that there are many, many souls here in Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, Tennessee, and all over America who love you, respect you, and believe that you are an awesome God. Father, one particular person that I would like to mention tonight, not only is Sonia Stevens a faithful and good servant in your kingdom, but she's a great team member for the people of Rutherford County, for the employees of Rutherford County government, and to this body. And so we would ask that you would bless Sonia and her mother, Mama Faye, until their days end. Father, as always, we would ask that you would be with and comfort the men and women who represents America overseas, and at the appointed time, please bring them home safely. And Father, we know that you will send your son back, and we ask that you send him quickly. But until that day comes, may your love, the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost dwell in our hearts today and forevermore. And it's through his name we pray. Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3 white stars on a field of blue. God keep them strong and ever true.
It is with pride and love that we salute the flag of Tennessee.
Thank you.
All may be seated. Looks like we got an okay, so we'll go ahead and we're going to play this 3-minute video, so you won't have to stand for 3 minutes. All right, T? Okay, maybe later.
Hello?
We'll come back to that. Third time's a charm. We'll get the bugs worked out. Before we get into our regular stated meeting members and guests, we'd like to welcome all of our guests here tonight. We have a special ceremony, a recognition ceremony that we'd like to conduct before we get into the regular business of this commission, before we do our work. This recognition ceremony will be started off, and I'd like to introduce Miss Donna Barrett. Miss Donna Barrett, I served in, she's a former member of the State House of Representatives. I served with her when I was in the State Senate. She's a former chairman of the Rutherford County Republican Party, and she's currently on the State Election Commission. And she has organized and done some things here tonight for someone special that we want to recognize. So, Ms. Barrett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron, and thank you all for allowing us to partake in a portion of your meeting. Tonight we're here, as you know, a few months ago, earlier this year, we lost Commissioner Irvin, untimely and quite suddenly from us. Tonight is an attempt to, in part, do what we weren't able to do at that passing, and that is recognize Steve and his accomplishments. So thank you for your indulgence. Steve was new to the county commission and not somebody we had a long history with, but we were all getting to know him. As we all, as you know, as an elected body, you become family. And Steve was quickly becoming a part of the family here in Rutherford County. So I want to give you a little bit of background of things we may not have known about Steve, but would have gotten to know as he grew with us. Steve began a career in 1980 with the Metro Police Department. After leaving the police department, he worked in the auto industry, where he worked his way up to a finance and insurance manager. In 1992, Steve enrolled at MTSU. He graduated May 1996 with a Bachelor of Science, majoring in business with a minor in political science. An interesting fact, he and his oldest daughter, Erica, started their freshman year at the same time. In 1999, Steve started his career at Lighthouse Christian School as an educator. Another interesting fact, Steve and his youngest daughter started school on the same day. Victoria started kindergarten, and Steve started high school as a teacher. In August 2000, Steve earned his master's in business education. Steve taught many subjects while he was at Lighthouse Christian School, but his passion was civics. He organized a mock presidential election in November 2005 and again in December 2008, which caught the attention of the Tennessean who covered the election process. One of the student Republican presidential nominee, Robert Counts, was quoted saying he was never interested in government before the race, and said that the most challenging aspect of the campaign had been preparing to defend himself against his competitor. That speaks highly of Steve. Steve's vision was to ensure his civics class understood the importance of a presidential election and the platform in which each party represented. Steve's vision was not only to introduce the students to things happening around them, but also he believed deeply that they should learn to serve in their communities. Steve was quoted saying, "The Bible says you do the good because it's in your heart." In the spring of 2018, Steve was honored with the first Lighthouse Christian School Legacy of Leaders Award for his service in the community. When I interviewed Steve as he considered running for the county commission, I learned of his volunteer work on campaigns, his status as a teacher of Dave Ramsey financial principles, but what was most evident was he was a gentle giant. He had a compassionate heart and a desire to do the right thing, not the politically expedient thing. I knew this man who served God well, who sought to instill civics and financial responsibility in his students, and loved his wife and children deeply, would become an outstanding statesman in our community, and he was quickly attaining that status. Tonight, as part of this program, Brian Sweat, head of schools at Lighthouse Christian School and one of Steve's closest friends, is here, and I'd like to invite him to come forward.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Mayor Ketron, for allowing me to be here today and honor my friend. I had the privilege of working with Steve Irvin for 16 years. When I walked on campus for the first time and took over the job as head of schools at Lighthouse Christian School and preschool, he was already there. And just a few days after his death, God laid on my heart just to write a tribute to him. And I want to read that tribute. I think give you a really good inside look of who Steve really was, the giant heart that he had for other people. Hearing some of the things that Donna shared, I was there for those elections and for the different volunteer things that he did with the students, and always did an amazing job. The reality of death has been in the forefront of my heart and mind this past 36 hours, as Thursday evening I received the tragic news that former Lighthouse teacher and my good friend Steve Irvin had passed away. When his daughter Candace sent me the text, I couldn't comprehend it. I read it at what seemed like 100 times and tried to make sense of it. Steve was only 66, in good health, and this was completely unexpected. I was just with him at his home this past Wednesday. Mr. Irvin served and taught at Lighthouse Christian School for 20 years. You read that right, 2 decades. He had a huge heart, loved his wife Debbie and family dearly. He invested into his students. He was always behind the scenes taking care of someone who had a need, and he could tell a story like no other. Steve used to be a police officer, and the stories he would tell about the time he shot and killed a time clock in a very dark warehouse, and the time he had to put down a hurt animal and he couldn't do it, and he turned his head and shot the lady's house. And so Steve could tell stories, this larger than life, just like nobody else, and we always had a great time together. Steve had a big personality, a big heart, and even bigger love for his family. I know as a minister of the gospel, we are expected to have answers about these things when they happen. Today, I don't have any answers, but I do have hope. Hope in Jesus and his victory over death. I gain solace that today, Steve joins his daughter, Caitlin, in heaven with Jesus. I imagine heaven just got a little louder as Steve and Caitlin reunited. If you knew Steve, you knew Caitlin was his heart and his mini-me. When she was taken from us far too soon, a part of Steve's heart went with her. We served together at Lighthouse for 16 years. We celebrated great victories together, laughed together with our students and teachers, and cried during times of loss, and prayed together that God would do great things in the hearts and lives of our children at Lighthouse. He retired last year as he was elected to be a commissioner for the city of Murfreesboro. Today I miss my friend, but I'm grateful that just last week I went to his house and we hung out in his front yard and connected. You see, Steve had won a University of Kentucky basketball signed by John Calipari from one of our online auctions. He purchased it for his son-in-law, Chris. He told me Chris just needed some encouragement and he wanted to do something for him. That was Steve Irvin, generous and kind, and always finding ways to make a difference in the lives of others. I have found comfort reading the post on Facebook from alumni and current students about the difference and impact Steve made on their lives. Although today we will put on our best smiling faces and be strong for others, today I'm heartbroken for his wife, Debbie, his children, Meredith, Erica, Jason, Candace, and Tori. Please be praying for Steve's family, and may we care for them like Steve cared for others. Steve's huge heart finally gave out. And there's a void left that needs to be filled. Hopefully we can find ways to fill those voids. In the midst of our heartbreak, we can cling to our hope in Christ. Love and miss you, Steve. Please give Caitlin a hug from all of us. Thank you.
In 2018, Steve threw his name in the hat to run for the County Commissioner of District 19. I remember vividly how nervous he was watching and waiting for the final results. This is his first time into politics, even though there's politics in school, there's politics in the police department. It's the first time he actually got into the real realm of the political ring. So, as previously stated, May 2019, Steve retired from education and began his new career as Rutherford County's Drug and Probation Court. He surfaced to the top when I did the interviews for that position. The predecessor had left and gone back to work for the state, Mr. King. And out of all those that I interviewed, he was the strongest candidate. Steve was passionate about those who were in his program. He especially wanted to show our veterans how much he cared and appreciated their service to our country. Steve was so proud to be part of Rutherford County that he felt that he could really make a difference. Right after he got elected, I decided I'd done this in the state Senate, and I thought it'd be good just to get a couple of Christian folks and that worked here for Rutherford County, and on every Wednesday get together. There's 6 of us. We get together at 7 o'clock in the morning and do a little Bible study, and asked Steve to be part of that. And as we were going through the book of John, I remember a couple of days before he passed, we were at Bible study, and Steve said, "Can we go back and just read Psalms?" He said, "Something that's just been weighing on my heart, where it says, 'Be still and know that I am God.'" And he said it 2 or 3 times. "Be still and know that I am God." And it's still, I still see that image today of him sitting there, and then we went back into reading the book of John. And he truly enjoyed doing that. Even back when it was cold, he tried to beat me here, because I usually get here about 5 after 7, and he'd try to beat me here and sit out there, and he'd start reading ahead of us, so he could have some discussion after we read the scripture. And I know he really appreciated that, but he seemed to know that he had comfort because he knew where he was going after those readings. Steve was a man who lived his life to serve others and never expected anything in return. His pride and joy were his 6 children and 7 grandchildren, and recently 1 great-granddaughter, I believe, Debbie. He was certainly a man larger than life. We have a presentation from our state delegation. All of our members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. At this point in time, I'd like to call on former Commissioner and now State Representative Charlie Baum, who is here, to present on behalf of our state delegation. Debbie, if you wouldn't mind, and all the delegations, if any members of the delegations are here, Representative Michael Sparks is here. Debbie, if you would, please come on up. Representative.
Mr. Irvin and to the Irvin family, we are very sorry to hear of your loss. We know Steve is in heaven with God. Steve was a good man. He was a public servant. He represented his community in good faith. I met with him and talked with him on the phone several times about local and state issues. And from those meetings, it was clear to me that he cared deeply about his constituents. The Tennessee Senate and Tennessee State House of Representatives want to recognize Commissioner Irvin for his work as a public servant. And so we passed a resolution when we were in session recognizing his service. And so with Senator Shane Reeves and Senator Don White, along with Mike Sparks, Representative Tim Rudd, and Representative Brian Terry, we would like to present you with the resolution that was passed. We've got a paper copy and a copy that's framed. This is what was voted on in the State House and State Senate.
If I could, Mayor. Steve and I, we were at a TDOC meeting talking about corrections, talking about drug addiction. I know that's something Commissioner Craig Harris is passionate about, and I was passionate about it on this commission. And we kind of had a little heated argument, to be honest with you. And I think he kind of calmed down, I kind of calmed down, and I called the mayor. You remember Mayor Kitchen when I called about that? You remember I called you and I asked you to check on him, and then come to find out, he was dealing with some things. I think he had to go to court or something that day, and called you to check on him. And then he called me back later, and it just showed me at that moment that you never know what people are going through. Each and every one of us may be going through something. You don't really know what is driving someone at that particular moment. And just today, Commissioner Stevens, I was really proud of him. He had an OD day, 95-year-old veteran come to Rotary, and Commissioner Blair was there with us. And it's very touching to hear what I think it was Bill Allen, I believe it was, Bill Allen. He was in the Tennessee Electric magazine, and Chris Jones, the CEO of Middle Tennessee Electric, was there. And he said during D-Day, I guess their ship was bombed, and they happened to get in that pickup truck. It's a really neat story. And he said there, and he was saved, and he said there for a moment, I felt like I was an atheist. I was an atheist, he said, because seeing all my comrades killed and maimed and wounded, and he said, then he thought about that life raft that was sent to him, and he thought about that ship that was sent to him. And it was so neat when he closed out, Commissioner Blair, if you remember, he said, Guy's not dead, folks. Guy's not dead. And it's a 95-year-old veteran. And I got him on video. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Got him on camera. Got a picture with him. Because, Representative Bond and I and the other delegation, we've been dealing with a lot of difficult things in Nashville. If you've been watching, a lot of protests, a lot of riots. And I love what Commissioner Trey Gooch mentioned. And I don't know if you know, you quoted Alex Tocqueville. I don't know if you knew that, but that's pretty much what Tocqueville talked about America being so great. And America has been great because it's been good and it's been built on biblical principles. And I appreciate y'all sharing that prayer, and I appreciate the mayor doing that prayer service. And we got good people in Nashville on both sides of the aisle, but we've gotten too far away from that. And that's what I liked about Commissioner that stood strong. And the reason he kind of got a little fired up is he says, Mike, I've invited your delegation, and y'all don't never show up, for the drug court meetings. And I'll get so fired up too. I'd be the same way sometimes. And I told him, I said, but the meetings, it's difficult because we're in session, we've got meetings going on. But that's something that I want to challenge my delegation to do, and every commissioner here, because if you really want to make Steve proud, it would be to show up at those graduations. Show up over at that drug court, that veterans court, mental health court, and see lives changing, because Christ talked about it. It's not the healthy need a physician, but the sick. So if we just touch one life, and Commissioner, he touched many lives, and I think his legacy will continue to live on. So sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Thank you, guys, for that. That's wonderful. Mike, place that on the chair, please.
Okay.
Can I go? No, leave it there. Leave it there. Leave it there.
Brian, would you join us back up here, please? Please. I want to thank the delegation for the resolution. That was a special edition for today, and Charlie surprised me with that today, so we had more to celebrate. What is evident from everybody that spoke tonight is Steve's lifelong commitment to lifelong learning. He was the first in his family to obtain a bachelor's, going on for higher education. After he obtained his bachelor's, and while working a full-time job and raising a family with Debbie, he went on to earn his master's. Upon his passing, Steve was once again fulfilling that lifelong learning desire that was in him. He was enrolled at Liberty University's PhD program. Steve was set to graduate this December, and when Liberty University heard of his passing, his records were reviewed, and it was determined that Steve's PhD should be granted. I have a letter I want to read from Liberty University. It says, "Dear Miss Irvin, on behalf of Liberty University, I write to express our sincere sympathies and condolences at the passing of your husband, Steve. Please know that we are asking the Lord to comfort you only as He can during such a difficult time. We were deeply saddened to learn of Steve's passing. In his honor, we would like to recognize his accomplishments by presenting you with this diploma. I hope this brings a measure of comfort to you and your family. Steve was a highly valued member of the Liberty family. We were truly blessed to have him as a member of our student body. Sincerely, Sean Akins, Provost." Debbie, it is our honor to present to you Steve's PhD.
I don't know that I could say anything. But Steve was very proud to be part of this commission. He loved each and every one of y'all. He learned so much from you guys. He loved the fact that Mayor Ketron believed in him and allowed him to be a part of Rutherford County. He truly loved his staff members, and I know some of them are here tonight. He loved them all, and he only wanted the best for them. But this right here, he would have been so proud to have gotten this. He worked so hard, and I'm just so thankful that they were willing to go ahead and grant him his degree. And I want to say thank you to Donna for all that she's done to make this happen. You are the absolute best. And on behalf of me and the kids, and I know they're watching, we do from the bottom of our heart, thank you so much. And Brian, I've heard it said 1,000 times, but we love you, brother. Yeah. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Hang on just.
Go ahead.
Debbie, on behalf of the County Commission. 21 commissioners of the Rutherford County Commission, we have a token, and this is a replica of our historic courthouse, a beautiful courthouse.
Yes.
It has a light inside of it, so it will continue to burn. And so every time you look at this, you leave it on 24/7, because we know that Dr. Irvin is watching us. Okay? He's going to see this light burning, so.
Thank you guys so much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you so much.
Again, Commissioners, thank you for your time and indulgence. The staff of Lighthouse Christian School and the Rutherford County Probation Office would like to welcome everyone to join us now for a reception in the first floor lobby. Unfortunately, you Commissioners have to stay. If there's any cupcakes left over, we'll send them up. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. I have one more presentation before we conduct our business. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Ely if you wouldn't mind joining me here in the well. Commissioner, you stepped up to the challenge when Steve passed and put yourself back. How many years were you here previously?
24.
24 years. She served this body with honor and distinction. And when this commission needed an extra voice, more talent, advice of how to help steer for the last several months since Steve's passing, you returned and answered the call. And so this will be her last meeting with this august body. And so on behalf of the County Commission, this is what we want to present to you. These are signed and numbered with a little light on there, so you can always remember us as well.
Oh, how wonderful. Thank you.
Congratulations, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you very much.
They say that we have 3 minutes. 3 minutes on this, and then we'll get right into our business, and we have public hearings. So if IT is, we'll go ahead and have roll call.
Commissioner Gammon,
Here.
Commissioner Piercy,
Here.
Commissioner Rather,
Here.
Commissioner P,
Here.
Commissioner Cook,
Here.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush, Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Gurley,
Here.
Commissioner Blair,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Gammon,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Dodd,
Here.
Commissioner Phillips,
Here.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Here.
Commissioner Ely,
Here.
Commissioner Gooch,
Here.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yeah.
We have a quorum, 20
We have a
present.
quorum to conduct our business. We're going to try this video one more time, and then we'll get right into our public hearings.
I would like for you to know that I believe that if our flag could speak, these are the words that it would say. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present Old Glory. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings, and I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically across the great institutions of learning, and I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, truth, honor, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am brave, I am proud, and I am ready. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is held a little higher, my arms a little truer. Except for my God, I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I I am sovereign. I am saluted. I am respected. I am honored. I am loved. And yet I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Some of these battles include Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Aragon Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Quezon, Saigon, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, and scores of other places long forgotten by all, except those that were there with me. I know because I was there. I led my special operations forces in the quiet of the night and at the tip of the spear. I saw them fight fearlessly throughout the globe every day of the year. I watched over them even during the casualties of Desert One, and they still loved me. I was on a small hill, Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, tired. But my soldiers and my sailors, my airmen, my Coast Guardsmen, my Marines, they all cheered me, and I was so very proud. I was at Ground Zero in New York City on September the 11th as cowardly fanatics attacked America. I was raised from the ashes of once proud buildings by brave firefighters. These were heroes who risked their lives to save others, showing all that America, although bloodied, will never be beaten because those who would destroy me cannot win. For I am the symbol of freedom, of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have been soiled, I've been burned, I've been torn, and I have been trampled on in the streets of my own country. And when it is done by those whom I have served with in battle, it hurts. But hear me today when I say, I will overcome because I am strong. I have slipped the surely bounds of earth, and from my vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space. And I have been that silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hour comes when my stripes are torn into strips to be used as bandages to cover the wounds of my fellow comrades on the field of battle. And also when I fly at half-mast to honor my soldiers and my sailors, my airmen, my Coast Guardsmen, my Marines. But most importantly, when I'm placed into the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the gravesite of her fallen son or her fallen daughter, I am so very proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God. Long may I wave.
Thank you. I hope that moved some of you. It should have. This is what we are and who we are. At this point in time, we'll go ahead and have a reading and approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion? Speaker Pro Tem Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. A couple of quick corrections. On page 534, there was a motion and a second, and the second name, there's an extra name added there, and our clerk has already removed that, and that correction has been made. And then on page 580, we moved to suspend the rules, and there was a resolution on the COPS grant, if I remember that right, and during the roll call, there was one commissioner, Commissioner Robert Stevens, that voted no, and he was recorded as yes in the minutes, and that needs to be changed. Other than that, I find those minutes to be in order and move that they be approved as presented.
Members, you've heard the corrections and a motion. Is there a second? A second, Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion, corrections, or additions? Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Motion passes 20 yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now it's time for our public comments. Once your name is called, we ask that you give your name and address, and please leave your comments, keep your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any?
Mayor Ketron, I'm not sure, but it's past 6:30. We may need to go to our public hearings.
Yes, sir. You are correct. It is 6:30. It's past 6:30. We'll come back and find ourselves back on the agenda. Director Damasi, if you would please come forward. You're recognized as we move into our public hearings.
Good evening, Mayor Ketron and members of the commission. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. We have 5 public hearings for your consideration tonight. The first is for property located along Morgan Road. It's a rezoning from residential low density to residential medium density. There are 2 houses currently on the subject property and have been for quite some time. A re-subdivision plat was recorded back in 2009, which really was more of a land swap with some of the surrounding properties. The applicant came to us several months back with a subdivision plat wanting to subdivide the property so that each house would be on its own lot in order to sell one of the houses. So since the property is zoned residential low density, that does require a minimum of 1 acre lot size, unless there is a provision in the zoning ordinance that does allow, if there's adequate fire protection in the form of hydrants, that they can go down to 15,000 square feet. Unfortunately, after CONCEIVD was consulted about this, the water line in the area cannot support a fire hydrant, so the minimum lot area does have to be 1 acre. Since the property is less than 2 acres, of course, they could not get 2 lots that were at least 1 acre in size. So after discussing some possible options with the applicant, what we ended up settling on is, well, really it was kind of a last option, was him to make an application to zone this 1 tract of land to residential medium density, which will allow him to have the smaller lot size. The reason for this application really is because of that water line along Morgan Road that couldn't support the hydrant. If a hydrant could have been supported, the proposed subdivision could have been reviewed and could have been approved administratively by staff. As staff, we would normally be opposed to a zoning application like this, especially in a more rural area, but staff, myself, feel that this is an isolated type incident. There's not going to be any redevelopment of this property. It's simply, there's 2 houses there. They want to do the subdivision. There's still going to be 2 houses, one next to each other, just on each individual lot. So for that reason, staff did recommend approval. There was very little discussion on this item at the Planning Commission, and they did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Damasi from the commissioners? Any questions? And I call the Rutherford County meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. Public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please come forward. State your name and address, and if you are for or against the proposed request. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed and call the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval with staff comments.
Have a motion for approval and a second. Second, Commissioner Cush. Are there any questions? Without objection, all those, excuse me. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Motion passes 20 yes.
Mr. Damasi, you recognize.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our second public hearing tonight is for property located along Shelbyville Pike. The existing zoning is residential medium density. The proposed zoning is for commercial general. The applicant would like to zone the property to commercial general in order to construct a motor vehicle sales lot on the property. Commercial general of our 3 commercial zones is the only one that will allow motor vehicle sales as a use by right. His operating hours, he indicates, would be Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. He does anticipate approximately 5 employees on the site and also will offer automotive repair services. Access to the property would remain along Shelbyville Pike. Any new or modified access points would have to be approved by TDOT, as 231 Shelbyville Pike is a federal and state road. Any parking maneuvering areas would have to be built to meet county road parking lot specifications. Landscaping would commercially zoned properties are required to install a Type 2 buffer adjacent to residentially zoned properties. Property to the north is already zoned commercially, so no buffering would be required along that property line. However, the landscape plan would show some other areas that would require that buffering, and would be required if this is approved. A site plan, again, would have to be submitted with showing all construction on the site, and performance standards that we have for noise, dust, et cetera, would also have to be adhered to. The Planning Commission did ask the applicant about the number of cars on site and activities on the site. The applicant stated he would have a sales lot, a garage for some repair work. There were some questions about the surrounding land uses that they had for staff, the changing character of the area, and also a site plan requirement. Again, site plan would be required should this be approved. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. And again, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. DeMasi on this request? Seeing none, call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. Public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please come forward, state your name, address, and if you're for or against the proposed request. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed. Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. In the absence of Commissioner Jernigan, I would move to approve with staff comments.
Motion to approve, and we have a second. Commissioner Reed and Commissioner Cush. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Mr. DeMasi, you recognized.
Our third of 5 public hearings tonight is for property located along Franklin Road. The existing property is zoned residential medium density. The proposed zoning is for commercial services. The applicant would like to zone this property commercial services in order to relocate an existing concrete construction company and pool sales installation company. Hours of operation, number of employees, et cetera, were not described in the application, which is not something we can regulate anyway, but he did include a concept plan that has been included with your agenda materials, and you can find those on your iPad. Again, since this is not a plan development application, the concept plan is not binding. However, and as with any commercial development, a site plan would be required to be submitted and reviewed by our office. Access to this property would be along Franklin Road. Similar to the last application, any modified or new access points would be required to be approved by TDOT, as Franklin Road is a state road. The applicant is showing a gravel drive. County standards will require this access drive to be paved, and all parking maneuvering areas would need to meet county regulations as demonstrated again on a site plan. Landscaping and performance standards, what I said during the last application would apply here as well. Commercially zoned properties are required to have a type 2 buffer adjacent to residentially zoned properties and are subject to our performance standards. Again, the landscaping and screening would be verified during the site plan review. Planning Commission has considered several applications for commercial zoning in this area over the years, most recently a portion of the property to the east just last year. There's a number of existing businesses to the east as well as an event venue just to the south of the subject property. This is identified as an urban-style corridor in our comprehensive plan, which does anticipate non-residential uses. The Planning Commission asked if staff had received any calls on this. We did receive some informational calls. Following this question, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. And again, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. DeMasi? Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. The public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please come forward, state your name and address, and if you are for or against the proposed request. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed and Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I
Gooch.
move for approval with conditions and staff comments.
Have a motion, and is there a second? Second, Commissioner Serino. Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely, Commissioner Gooch, Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Mr. DeMasi, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our fourth public hearing tonight is for property located along Double Springs Road, 640 Double Springs Road. The existing zoning is residential medium density, and the proposed zoning is a planned unit development for a Rucker service business. I will call your attention not only to the staff comments that I'll be referring to, but also to the pattern book, which is also included on your iPads tonight. Just to give you a little bit of background on this particular application, there was a rezoning application for this property that was considered by the Planning Commission at their March 9th, 2020 meeting. The original request was for light industrial zoning, which was ultimately denied by the Planning Commission due to the range of uses that are found in the light industrial zone. This use falls under a category that's only allowed in certain zones, being the industrial zones, and maybe one of the special character areas, the EAC more specifically. But after looking at this, the Planning Commission again did recommend, after recommending denial for the application, that the applicant did pursue a planned development approach, which is what led to the current application before you today. The subject property was approved for a special exception for septic tank storage back in 1994. The order of action from that meeting is attached in your agenda packets if you're interested in taking a look at it. Aerial photography back from 2019 shows several septic tanks still being stored on the property, which is consistent with the approval that they had received. There's an existing trailer on the property. The applicant would like to rezone the property in order to operate the Rucker service facility. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. That's classified as a transport and warehousing use, which is why it wasn't allowed in any of the commercial zones. According to information in the pattern book, again, that's on your iPads, he plans to use the existing mobile home on the property as an office. In the future, he'd like to add a 2,400 square foot shop. He plans to utilize the existing cleared area for his business and to preserve the existing screen on the property. When you look at the aerial photos, again, it's on your iPad, you'll see that's a pretty significant treed area on the property, and they want to preserve as much of that as possible for their screen. He will have 2 employees. His business does operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, although there may not always be somebody on site. He does plan to have capacity for about 50 cars, and will have a paved area for employee and handicap parking. Access to the property would be along Double Springs Road. He is proposing to use the existing driveway onto the property. The storage area, again, would be behind the existing tree line, so it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to see what's going on back with all those trees being there. There is an electric line easement that you can see on the concept plan that's in the pattern book. that will preclude any buildings being placed under them, but vehicle storage is something that probably would be allowed. The pattern book does appear to show a gravel access drive. We typically require those to be paved, so the applicant's been made aware of that. The pattern book also discusses the existing landscape screen, which we've talked a little bit about being preserved. This, again, being this use is classified as a transport and warehousing use, this requires a heavier buffer than just a normal commercial buffer. It'd be a type 3, which is our thickest buffer that we have. Existing plantings can be counted towards that. City of Murfreesboro officials, since this backs right up to City of Murfreesboro annexed property, have expressed some concerns with this application due to recently approving a residential development directly adjacent to the subject site on the west. And again, there's the attached plan that's within your agenda packets. But we feel that preserving the existing landscape material will go a long way in screening the proposed use from this new development, should this be approved. And of course, a landscape plan would be required along with the site plan to ensure conformance. And the zoning ordinance does include performance standards for noise, dust, et cetera, that would have to be adhered to. Questions were asked by the commissioners about how this use would be prevented from becoming a junkyard. Staff did explain that the applicant will be bound by what's approved in the pattern book, namely the number of vehicles being stored. Those are some things that if we ever receive complaints that we could verify. There were also questions about vehicle turnover, hazardous liquid seeping to the ground, et cetera. Something that we are concerned with as staff and have made the applicant aware of is that they would have to take steps to mitigate any potential runoff of fluids from these wrecked cars. This is especially important considering that there's a sinkhole on the property, which is toward the northern end of the property. They would have to do a long-term maintenance agreement, and inspections would be required to monitor compliance with this. There was also some discussion on the residential uses adjacent to the subject property and the screening. Staff said that, of course, buffering, as we discussed, would be required, especially along that southern property. There's a little area toward the entrance of the property off of Double Springs Road that would need to be beefed up, for lack of a better word, but the applicant, again, has been made aware of that. There was also discussion by the commission that the amount of homework that the applicant had done with the neighbors surrounding the property, and some discussion about how the applicant's business functions. Following all this discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote, and with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe I saw the applicant's representative on the Zoom call just a moment ago, so he may be able to answer questions as well.
Any questions for Mr. DeMasi from the commissioners? Any questions? Seeing none, I call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. The public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please come forward or Zoom in. State your name and address, and if you are for or against the proposed request. Mr. DeMasi? None? Okay. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed and the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Shanto.
Chairman,
Sereno.
Based on the staff and condition, so I seek for approval for this zoning.
We have the motion from Commissioner Sereno and a second, Commissioner Cush. Any further discussion? Without objection, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Motion passes, 20 yes.
Motion passes. Mr. DeMasi, you recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our final rezoning request tonight is located along Rucker Road. This is an existing planned unit development for a residential subdivision. The application is for an amendment to that PUD for a revised layout. Just again, for a little bit of history on this particular property, the Rucker Landing PUD was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in June of 2018. The preliminary plan, which is the master plan for the development, was approved by the Planning Commission back in September of that same year, 2018. A revised preliminary plan for sections 1 and 2 was approved by the Planning Commission at their February 24th, 2020 meeting, which made some minor modifications to the approved preliminary plan, and these were minor to the point that they didn't require a reapproval by the County Commission for amendment to the PUD. After the zoning was approved for the site, a wetlands determination for the development revealed that a significant portion of the site was impacted by wetland soils and was not appropriate for residential construction. This determination necessitated a change in design as well as a reduction of the total number of lots. Staff advised that the applicant that these changes were more than could be approved administratively and instructed him to submit this PUD amendment request that is before you tonight. The development was allowed to proceed in those areas that were not affected by the wetland soils and were still consistent with the PUD approval. And I will call your attention as well that this PUD booklet is also on your iPads for your review as well. The original PUD approval was for 246 lots. The revised design proposes 172, which is a reduction of 74 lots total. The overall density for the development is 1.74 units per acre, which is a decrease from the 2.5 units per acre that was originally approved. Minimum lot sizes, houses, et cetera, are the same as the originally approved plan, with the exception of about 7 lots that were identified as alternate interior lots that are slightly smaller than the typical interior lots, these would be 6,600 square foot minimum as opposed to 7,200. And the reason for that is due to some of the location of the wetland soils, was just to make sure those lots didn't impact any of those particular soils. All the lots would be for purchase, and the plan incorporates amenities program, which includes playground and usable open space. There's also estate and standard lots that include minimum brick masonry percentages, and again, all this information can be found on your iPads, rather, in the pattern book. And again, all this, with the exception of those 7 lots, there's no changes as far as that goes from the original application. The proposed layout shows 2 separate connections to Rucker Road. Another one of the big changes to this plan was there was a connection originally proposed to the south into the existing Colonial Estates subdivision. However, due to the wetland soils, this connection was removed. And there are no connections shown to Applewood subdivision to the west, and there weren't any on the original plan as well. There was some discussion on the traffic improvements at the intersection of Rucker Road and Shelbyville Pike. We did state at that Planning Commission meeting that the traffic light is planned. We have looked at the plans. They are at TDOT for that intersection of Rucker Road and Shelbyville Pike. We do hold the bond for the light. TDOT holds a bond for some of the turn lane improvements that will be the responsibility of the Davenport subdivision, which is directly across 231 from Rucker Road. We also have a bond in place for the traffic improvements that this development is required to make on that same intersection, namely right turn lane and some other modifications. So those things are coming. It's just got to work through the approval process at TDOT. There was also some questions about the drainage, considering the location of the CSX Railroad, which is directly to the east of the subject property. Pad elevations on these lots were set due to this issue, and the overflow elevations actually over the tracks. So the overflow elevation was actually the base point that they used to set for a lot of these houses. That way they wouldn't flood should something happen to, a large flooding event. After discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application by a unanimous vote. And again, I just want to reiterate that the largest change really is beyond the road alignment and losing that access in the back is just the reduction of the 74 lots. So this subdivision won't be near as large as it was originally approved. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. DeMasi from the commission? Any questions? Therefore, I call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold this public hearing on this request. The public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please state your name and address if you were for or against the request. I'm sorry? Is he wanting to speak? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Harris, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we're not seeing your picture, but we got your voice. Go ahead.
I don't have any comments.
No comments? Okay.
No.
All right, seeing no one else to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you. The same as before. In Commissioner Jernigan's absence, I'll move to approve with all staff conditions and comments.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Reed on the second. Any questions? Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
He got on the plane. He's gone.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. DeMussy. Members, I'll draw you back to the first part of the agenda, to item G. It's time for public comments. I believe staff informed me earlier today we had nobody that called in to speak tonight on public comments. So we will move into item H, election and confirmations. Commissioner Reed, if you would please come forward for our elections and confirmations. Commissioner Reed, you're recognized in the well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we'll begin with item 1, is the election of notaries. Listings of notaries may be found on your iPad. Mr. Chairman, I move to confirm the election of these individuals as Rutherford County notaries.
Have a motion. Is there a second for our notaries? Have a second. Commissioner Blair. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Motion
Item
passes.
2, steering wishes to confirm the appointment of Philip King and Juanita Bonkum to the Linebaugh Library Board to 3-year terms, which will expire June 2023. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion on the announcement. Have a second. It's just an announcement, right? Huh? It's just an announcement. We really won't take a roll on that. It's just announcing the reappointment or the appointment of those two.
Item 3, steering wishes to confirm the appointment of Frank Lambert to Stones River Regional Library Board to a 3-year term to expire June 2023.
Thank you.
We would like to confirm the reappointment of Charlotte P. and David Jones to the Rutherford County Planning Commission to a 4-year term, which expires August 2024. Mr. Chairman, this concludes this part of the elections and confirmations. I'll return it back to the chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. At this point in time, it's now item number 5 on the agenda, the tentative elect Chairman Pro Tem. Commissioner Johnson, you're recognized.
I am honored to nominate Commissioner Jeff Phillips.
I have a motion for and a second for Commissioner Jeff Phillips to be our chairman pro tem. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Stevens has sent in a text that says that we have always voted as opposed to an appointment. So just, we've always voted on the library board appointment. Is that correct? So I'll entertain a motion for those. Commissioner Reed, if you want to state those two names again.
Those that confirm the appointment of Philip King and Juanita Balcom to the Linebaugh Library Board to a 3-year term that expires in June 2023. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Second on Commissioner Ely. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd also like to announce the appointment of Frank Lambert to the Stones River Regional Library Board to a 3-year term to expire August 2023. Next, we have the tentative. I need a motion. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. That takes us to H6. This is to announce the election of the commission chaplain at our September commission meeting. That will take us to item H7, tentative election of the commission chairman. I would turn the gavel over to Speaker Pro Tem Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. Item H7 is the tentative election of our commission chairman, and the floor is open for nominations.
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Bill Ketron.
Second.
The motion in order to cease nominations?
If so, I will make that motion.
Call the roll, if you would, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
18 yes, motion passes.
At the conclusion of that election, I'll turn the con back over to our mayor.
Thank you so much, Speaker Pro Tem. I want to thank each and every one of you for your confidence in me, and I will continue to lead you and do everything within my power to make you proud of Rutherford County. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Advice of counsel, it feels like that we probably need to go back, even though it's just an announcement, probably to at least have a roll call on the reappointment of Charlotte P. and David Jones to the Planning Commission to the 4-year term. So we'll have it on record in writing. So is there a motion? Motion to approve, thank you. Is there a second? And a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us to item H8, election of the steering committee. Commissioner Johnson.
I nominate Mr. Alan McAdoo.
Got a motion for nomination for Commissioner Alan McAdoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Craig Harris.
Commissioner Craig Harris has been nominated. Commissioner P.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Paul Johnson.
Commissioner Paul Johnson. Commissioner Blair, and then Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Blair.
And I'd like to nominate Commissioner Pettis Reed.
Commissioner Pettis Reed. Commissioner Cook.
I'd like to nominate Robert Stevens.
Commissioner Robert Stevens. Commissioner Piercy.
Michael Rather would be my nomination.
Commissioner Michael Rather. Are there other nominations?
I'd like to
Commissioner
nominate
Harris.
Virgil Gammon.
Commissioner Virgil Gammon has been nominated. Are there other nominations? Commissioner Phillips, you recognize.
Cush been nominated. I nominate Commissioner Cush.
Commissioner Cush has been nominated. Are there others? Are there others? All right. I'll declare that all nominations cease. And now we will, how are we going to do this? Yeah.
If I may, Mayor, so I believe that there were 8 nominations, if I have that correct. And just also to confirm that no commissioner nominated 2. In other words, every commissioner has just nominated 1 person. I think that's correct. So the fact that there's being 8, I think that, do you all have a sheet in front of you for voting purposes? Has that been, okay. Well, so here's what the regulations read, our local regulations, is that the floor will be kept open until every member has had an opportunity to nominate a person if he or she so desires. Each member will then vote for 7 members. The 7 members receiving the most votes shall be elected without receiving a majority of the votes on the duly elected and acting members of the commission. So I don't know if one way that this commission could do it is you could write the list down of all the nominees, or you would put down your 7, and then the Madam Clerk would count who out of all the 8 got the most votes. So there will be one person that'll have the least amount of votes, and that person would not be on the steering committee.
With everybody, Madam Clerk, if you would like to just read the names of all 8 names, so members, if you'll write those down. Commissioner P., you got a better...
It's going to be a little hard for those guys that are zooming in to write these down, so I'd suggest that they be able to give them to us orally.
Orally? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll read the 8 names again that have been nominated, and then we will go down the line and let each commissioner give their list of 7.
So everybody's going to do it orally.
Everybody, is that a motion, Commissioner P? Everybody do it orally?
I'd make that motion at least for the people that are zooming in to be able to do it orally. Now, as far as if it's simpler to write here, I don't care.
I would think that we probably all need to do it orally if we're going to zoom in and do it orally.
So I'll make the motion.
To make a motion that we all vote orally on 7 out of 8 and have a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Cush?
Could I ask Steering Chair Craig Harris to list the current members of the steering committee?
Current members?
Yes. We have Commissioner Cush, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Pettis, Commissioner Stevens, and Commissioner Rather.
Those are the 7. Madam Clerk, if you would, that was 6, and yourself.
And Miss Joyce Ely.
Miss Ely. Okay, so that's 7. Thank you for the math, Commissioner McAdoo. All right, so we've got our 7 that are currently on the steering committee. Madam Clerk, if you will read the names of the 8 slowly so the members can write down the names of the 8.
Okay. Those nominated: Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Stevens, Commissioner Rather, Commissioner Virgil Gammon, and Commissioner Cush.
Okay, those names have been read aloud. We will start at Commissioner Gammon and Mr. Spence. Both you all and Madam Clerk ready to write names down? If others want to do that as well, you can put little marks out on the side, but...
Could you give me just a moment?
Sorry?
Let me see. You ready, Madam Clerk?
Madam Clerk is ready. Commissioner Gammon, read your 7.
McAdoo, Harris, Johnson, Reed, Gammon, Cush, and Stevens.
Commissioner Piercy?
McAdoo, Harris, Johnson, Reed, Stevens, Rather, Cush.
Commissioner Rather?
Harris, McAdoo, Reed, Rather,
I'm sorry. Commissioner Harris?
McAdoo, Reed, Rather, Johnson, Stevens, Cush.
Commissioner P?
Harris, McAdoo, Reed, Rather, Virgil Gammon, Johnson, Stevens.
Commissioner Cook?
McAdoo, Johnson, Reed, Stevens, Gammon, Virgil.
Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Cush?
McAdoo, Harris, Reed, Stevens, Rather, Gammon, Cush.
Commissioner Reed?
Johnson, Harris, Gammon, Cush.
Gammon, Cush.
Stevens, and Reed.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Reed, could you read that one more time?
Tried to, I jumped around.
Sorry.
Johnson, Harris, Gammon, Cush, McAdoo, Stevens, and Reed.
Commissioner Gurley?
McAdoo, Harris, Johnson, Reed, Stevens, Gammon, Cush.
Commissioner Blair?
McAdoo, Harris, Johnson, Reed, Stevens, Rather, Cush.
Commissioner Allen?
Harris, Cush, Reed, McAdoo, Rather, Stevens, and Gammon.
Commissioner Allen, could you repeat that again?
Harris, Cush, Reed, McAdoo, Rather, Stevens, and Gammon.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens?
Harris, Cush, Johnson, McAdoo, Reed, Rather, and Stevens.
Commissioner Johnson?
Gammon, Harris, McAdoo, Reed, Stevens, and Johnson.
Okay, could you repeat those, Johnson? Could you please repeat those?
Gammon, Harris, myself, McAdoo, Reed, and Stevens. That's only 6. I'm leaving one out.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gammon?
McAdoo, Johnson, Rather, Reed, Cush, Harris, and Gammon.
Commissioner Harris?
Cush, Harris, Johnson, McAdoo, Reed, Stevens, Gammon.
Madam Clerk, may I interject?
I'm sorry, what?
May I interject?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, the rules require that each member vote for 7 members. So I believe you only voted for 6.
I'm sorry?
Our local rules require that you vote for 7.
Vote for 7?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cush.
Thank you. Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Harris, Johnson, Stevens, Reed, Cush, Rather.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Self, Harris, Johnson, Stevens, Rather, Gannon, and Cush.
Commissioner Ely?
Stevens, Cush, McAdoo, Harris, Reed, Rather, Gammon.
Commissioner Gooch?
Stevens, Cush, Old McAdoo, Harris, Reed, Rather, and Johnson.
Mr. Sereno?
McAdoo, Harris, Johnson, Reed, Stephen, Rather, Cush.
Everybody okay? We just had a video over the flag, and here I am destroying it.
You need a little music or something. Play the video again, right? Madam Clerk, you ready?
I'm ready.
Please read the winners.
Okay. Would you like me to read the final ones or the winners? Do you want me to read the tally, all the votes? Like McAdoo, 19?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner McAdoo, 19. Commissioner Harris, 19. Commissioner Johnson, 16. Commissioner Reed, 18. Commissioner Stevens, 18. Commissioner Rather, 13. Commissioner Virgil Gammon is 12. Commissioner Cush, 19. So the steering committee will consist of Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Stevens, Commissioner Rather, and Commissioner Cush.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Congratulations, members of the steering committee. Commissioner P.
Thought just occurred to a couple of us since Commissioner Stevens is back on this committee and is zooming into the meeting. If you're going to retire to the room in there, it's going to ask our attorney how we're going to do that. Is he going to make a phone call, or what are you going to do?
Is this for nominations of the chairman and the vice chairman? We typically do that at the next month's meeting, but is it practice that for steering committee we do it this month?
I would do it tonight, all right?
Okay. Well, I think it's important because that aspect is a public meeting, and so if we can reserve that till the end, it might. No, you don't want. I see some shaking heads there. You could do it right now and just do it in public. I mean, instead of
come to the well.
Just come to the well, and everybody's here, and you just get it. You just nominate the chairman and the vice chairman. I think we amended the rules to have the chairman pro tem conduct these nominations. So maybe Commissioner Phillips can call for nominations of the new steering committee members for the election of the chairman, and then turn it over to the chairman to do the vice chairman. Does that make sense?
Chairman Pro Tem, if you want to come to the well, and all the members of the committee gather at the well. That way you're on video. Commissioner. Gentlemen, everybody that got elected, please come to the well.
First off, congratulations on your election to the steering committee for this coming year. With that, the floor is open for nominations for chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to nominate Craig Harris.
Craig Harris has been nominated. Is there a second?
There's a second. And you're currently vice chair, correct? I'll make a motion to, sorry, we need to vote first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I move motion to cease electing Craig Harris by acclamation.
We have a motion to elect Craig Harris by acclamation.
I'll make a motion. Pettis Reed as vice.
Hold on, Mr. Cush. So you've got a motion to elect
acclamation.
by acclamation. You need a second on that?
You got a second.
All right, and then
we
just
have
do
a second on the acclamation.
do a roll call vote of the steering committee members on that, if you could, please.
Just for the acclamation.
Correct.
Can I just...
You can say without objection, if you all are ready to vote on Mr. Harris to be nominated as the chairman, and everybody's good with that, just do a roll call vote as to yes or no. Does that work?
It's good for me. We have a motion to elect Craig Harris as chairman by acclamation. So if you would just call the roll on that, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Phillips?
Nope. Commissioner
No,
Stevens.
he's pro tem, sorry. And Commissioner Stevens. Okay, there you are.
Yes.
Oh.
Congratulations. I'm going to turn
over to Chairman.
Turn the con over to Chairman Harris.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will now open up nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Pettis, alias Reed.
So noted. Second? Got a second? Anybody else?
Make a motion to cease nomination.
Second.
Got a motion to cease. Got a second? Commissioner Reed?
We can do a roll call.
Roll call.
Oh, you do it. Okay.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Now have a new chairman and vice chairman. Congratulations to both of you. That takes us to item I, resolution approval of the consent agenda. Call on Chairman Pro Tem Phillips. You were recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Catherine. I've reviewed the consent agenda, find those items to be appropriate, and without objection, move that the consent agenda be adopted as presented.
I have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Sereno. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Serena?
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Motion carries. Members, next on the agenda is item L. We've taken care of all of our public hearings. We'll move to item L, reports of standing committees. First report is Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. Commissioner P., you're recognized in the well.
Good evening. Unfortunately, we've got several items on the agenda tonight, but we should get through those fairly shortly. Item L1A, these are actually resolutions, the first two to redistribute money that was turned in at the end of the year, wasn't spent, and they've requested this back. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the general fund be amended as follows: for the Sheriff's Office, unassigned fund balance $1,000, and increase expenditures $1,000, and that's for the AAA grant for the sheriff. Next is the decrease in unassigned fund balance of $91,654, and an increase in revenue for public safety cops, $208,333, and increased expenditures of cops' other salaries, $201,945, and that's also for salaries and wages. The rest, Social Security, pension, employee insurance, and disability and Medicare make up the balance there. And again, we as a commission voted this in June 26th, our tax day. So this is something you've already seen, it's just restating that. Also, emergency management is the next amendment here to increase expenditures for other charges for $100,000 and a decrease in expenses for unassigned fund balance of $100,000. And this is for a public assistance grant for COVID-19 funding. And basically, we're incurring these costs, and this is the money to pay those back. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? Commissioner Johnson on the second. Any further questions? Without objection, please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Okay, item L1B, this is also money that was left unspent last year, turned in, and they've requested this back. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Special Purpose Fund be amended as follows: for the Sheriff's Office, decrease of restricted fund balance $47,500, increase expenditures of confidential $30,000, rep and maintenance for the building, $10,000, rep and maintenance vehicle, $7,500. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion by the chairman. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Rather and Commissioner Johnson. Any objection? Without objection, please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Okay, our next item is item L1C. This is also money that was allocated last year, and they're requesting this return. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Highway Fund be amended as follows. And this is actually for the road work out around the Plainview area. A decrease in assigned fund balance of $1,916,378. Engineering services, $270,003. Increase expenditures of other continued, $13,637. Asphalt services, $614,474. Crushed stone, $601,045. And stone for general construction material, $47,977. Pipe, $50,318. Other supplies and materials, and right-of-way, $270,639. Resolved the 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion, and is there a second? Commissioner Johnson on the second. Any further discussion or questions? Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Okay, next is item L1D, and this is a resolution from our school board. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the General Purpose School Fund and the Centralized Cafeteria Fund be amended according to the schedules attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Commissioner Blair on the second. Any questions or discussion? Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Our next item is L1E, another resolution for our fire department. Whereas Rutherford County Fire Rescue has been awarded the 2020 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program COVID-19 Supplemental from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $89,475.96 and requiring a 10% match in the amount of $8,947.60. And whereas the fire rescue will use the grant for the purchase of PPE and related supplies, including reimbursements to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor and all other appropriate officials of Rutherford County, Tennessee, and are hereby authorized to accept the 2020 Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program COVID-19 Supplemental from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $89,475.96 and requiring a 10% match in the amount of $8,947.60 for the purchase of PPE and related supplies, including reimbursements to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus, and additionally, that the general fund be amended as follows to recognize the proceeds from the grant and to appropriate said proceeds, and a decrease in unassigned fund balance of $8,497 and a key increase in revenue, federal revenue of $84,971 and increased expenditures for administration equipment of $93,467. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Commissioner P makes a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Cook on the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Commissioner Gurley, you recognized?
Yes, I have a question. The numbers on here is 8497, and it was quoted 8947. I'm just thinking those numbers are, which number is it right? Is it 8947 or 8497? I'm just trying to get it right. It doesn't make any difference, but other than it's just one thing has been read and another thing's in the resolution written.
I'll have to turn that question over to Lisa because I've actually read the numbers as I've got them.
I would go with the journal entry with those numbers, 8,497. hold on a second.
That answer your question, Commissioner?
Later, let me clear. 8497 plus 84,971 equals 93,468. So the 10% should be 8,497.
That's the number, Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Any other questions or objections? Hearing none, without objection, please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Motion passes 19 yes.
Okay, our next item is item L1F, and this is the initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $102,430,000 of general obligation bonds of Rutherford County, Tennessee. I'm going to read part of this, and I need to make a special note before I actually make the motion, and I want you to be aware the next item we look at will also is identical. However, it is the final resolution. We have to vote on this twice, and this initial resolution goes to the public. Having said that, I'll read this. Be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Rutherford County, Tennessee, the county, that for the purpose of providing funds for the acquisition of land for design, site development, construction, improving, renovating, repairing, and equipment of county buildings, facilities, acquisition of land for design, site development, constructing, improving, renovating, repair, and equipment of county schools and school facilities, payment of legal, fiscal, administrative, architectural, and engineering costs incident to any or all of the foregoing, acquisition of property, real and personal, related to the foregoing, collectively the projects. If required by applicable law, the payment of funds required to be shared with the city of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, to the extent not waived pursuant to sections 9-21-129 and 49-3-103 Tennessee Code annotated as amended pursuant to the appropriate fund of the county for prior expenditures for the foregoing cost, if applicable, including refinancing any interfund capital outlay notes, the proceeds of which were used for projects by conversion of notes to bonds, payments of cost incidents to the insurance and sale of the bond authorized herein, and there shall be issued bonds in one or more series of said county in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $102,430,000, which shall bear interest at the rate or rates not to exceed the maximum rate permitted by applicable Tennessee law at the time of issuance of the bonds, or any series thereof, which shall be payable from unlimited ad valorem taxes to be levied on all taxable properties within the county. And I'm going to stop there and let you read on at your leisure. However, I want to make note, this amount that I've read, this $102,430,000, also includes $5.3 million for a one-stop facility. Now, that facility has not been approved yet, but budget wanted to go ahead and put this out there so the public could look at that. You know, this is something that will be addressed before the bonds are issued, but having done it this way, we don't have to come back and do this again. So just as long as everybody realizes, although we're voting for this will be revisited. Resolve this, is it 13th day of August 2020? Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Johnson. Discussion? Questions? Without objection, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Okay, item L1G, as I mentioned before, this is actually the same resolution with the same stipulations I gave you. However, I will not read that long paragraph again. You've suffered through that once. You do have that. If you've got any questions, it's in your material. A resolution authorizing the insurance not to exceed $102,430,000 in aggregate principal amount in one or more series of general obligation bonds of Rutherford County, Tennessee, making provision for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Blair. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, without objection, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Item L1H, a resolution authorizing the issuance in one or more series of general obligation refunding bonds of Rutherford County, Tennessee for the purpose of refunding all or a portion of certain outstanding bonds of the county, making provisions for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds. Whereas Rutherford County, Tennessee, the county has previously issued, and there is currently outstanding general obligation bonds, Series 2012, dated February 15, 2012, maturing April 1st, 2023, and thereafter. General obligation bonds, Series 2014A, dated June 12, 2014, maturing April the 1st, 2025, and thereafter. General obligation refunding and improvement bonds, Series 2015A, dated May 14, 2015, maturing April 1st, 2026, and thereafter collectively the outstanding bonds. Resolved this 13th day of 2020, Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion from the chairman. Is there a second? Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Sereno. Any questions or discussion?
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Lisa to give a short synopsis of this.
Oh, well, on this one, we're trying to set the stage, and hopefully the stage is set, to allow us to advance refund some of these bonds. Congress had changed some laws that disallowed the governments from doing that. In the COVID situation and trying to help local governments, that discussion has come up again to maybe allow local governments to once again advance refund. At the moment, we still don't have the authority. Now, this resolution also gives us the authority, if it presents itself, to not do an advance to do it as a taxable situation instead of a non-taxable, only if that we can, or that we feel that we would generate savings. At that point, we might do one instead of three, because as the 2 resolutions ago, you passed the initial resolution that we have to publish in the paper for 20 days that allows the public to respond on that on that $102 million issue. Feel like it'll be mid-September before we actually sell bonds, and at that time, hopefully we'll have our plan in place. We may either do it, do part, or not do it at all.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion after that explanation? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Our last item is item L1I, and we actually, this is for presentation only. You have the material in front of you, but this is a presentation of Form CT-0253 for the EESI loan, and basically this is the school energy savings loans that we had approved for them to do, and this shows the breakdown of those loans. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman P. Next, members, we're on item number 2, Health and Education Committee, no report. Property Management Committee. Commissioner McAdoo, you recognized in the well.
Okay, we got 2 items to bring up tonight, and I would like I just saw him. Where did Steve go? He stepped out. Well, if you got any questions on the auction, I was going to relate those to Steve, but maybe he'll come back. Okay, first, resolution to accept and approve bid for the Old Bank and Coin Building. Whereas Rutherford County owns real property located at 124 North Maple Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37130, Coin Building property, and real property located at 22 North Public Square, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37130, the Old Bank Building property. Together, the Coin Building property and Bank Building property are referred to herein as the auction properties, and whereas at its March 12, 2020 meeting, the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners approved of the selling of the auction properties by open public auction, subject to acceptance and approval by the Board of Commissioners. of the highest bid for the auction properties. And whereas such open public auction was held on July the 30th, 2020, and whereas a high bid of $810,000 was bid for the auction properties, and further reflected on the reserve auction purchase agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A. The contents of which are incorporated herein at length as if set forth verbatim, and whereas it is in the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County that the county accept and approve the high bid of $810,000 for the auction properties and proceed to sell the same to the reserve auction purchase agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now therefore be it resolved by Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the high bid of $810,000 be, and the same is hereby accepted and approved. Further, the reserve auction purchase agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A is hereby ratified, and the county mayor and any other necessary officials of Rutherford County shall be, and the same hereby are authorized to execute any documents necessary to sell the auction properties and proceed with the closing on the same. Resolved this 13th day of August, 2020, and I so move. Mr. Chair.
Have a motion. There's a second. Commissioner Cook? Any discussion? Any comments? I want to briefly just give a shout out to the mayor's staff. Several members of the mayor's staff worked hard, especially shout out to to Deputy to the Mayor Steve Sandlin, being a duly licensed auctioneer. Usually, ladies and gentlemen, there's a 10% buyer's fee on most public auctions, and so being part of the mayor's staff, forego that 10% buyer's fee, so save the taxpayers $81,000, I believe, 10% of $810,000. So I think we were able to sell that piece of property. We have now placed it back on the tax roll. It's been empty for several years, and now citizens are going to see something nice. I believe the owners are probably here tonight. In the background, they have big plans for continuing to develop the downtown area to make us all proud, and we say congratulations to you, and thank you, Commissioner Sandlin, and the other members of the mayor's staff for the signage and everything. We less than $700 we spent total advertising and everything else. So it $548 to be exact. Okay, out of subtract that from the $81,000, so that's all it costs us, right? Okay, we have a motion before us and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P? Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yep.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
18 yes, motion passes.
And I would like to reiterate that for the committee that our deputy mayor and the staff did do a wonderful job. They kept us informed at all times, and a lot of work that they did put into selling that building, those two buildings. And for this time and then what we're going through, I think we got an excellent price for the two buildings. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the Town of Smyrna. Whereas the Town of Smyrna and Rutherford County entered into a certain lease agreement for lease of certain real property owned by Rutherford County consisting of approximately 18 acres located behind the Rutherford County Court Clerk's office in the Town of Smyrna for use by the Town of Smyrna Parks and Recreation Department for recreational purposes, specifically practice fields. And whereas the term of said lease was for 1 year, beginning September the 1st, 2019, and ending August 31st, 2020, with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. And whereas the Town of Smyrna desires to exercise its first option to renew the lease agreement for an additional 1 year for a term beginning September 1st, 2020, and ending August 31st, 2021, unless further renewed as provided in the lease agreement. And whereas it is in the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County that said lease agreement be renewed pursuant to the legal renewal agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A, the contents of which are incorporated herein at length as if set verbatim. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County be and hereby are authorized to enter into and execute for and on behalf of Rutherford County the lease renewal agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A with the Town of Smyrna as presented. Resolved this 13th day of August, 2020, and I so move.
I have a motion, and we have a second. Commissioner Harris on a second. Any discussion or questions? Members, I received a call from town manager, Mr. Hercules, and he asked us, they did have plans to use this piece of property to build ball fields on. Of course, Corona hit. They were planning on moving in that direction back in late February, first part of March, and basically just came to a stop. So they asked if we would put this back on the agenda and renew the lease. So I'm sure they'll get good use out of it at some point in time in the future. Have a motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P? Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
17 yes, motion passes.
That concludes Property Management Committee report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have Public Safety Committee. There is no report.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may interrupt, Commissioner P was summoned to the emergency room just a while ago. Most of us know that his wife has been suffering from some health conditions. Would it be appropriate if I offer a prayer for Pat P at this time?
Yes, sir, please.
Father, we are coming to you right now with our hearts opened up. You know Pat P. and the condition that she's been going through for quite some time now. You know Commissioner Robert P. and the love that he and his families have for you and for our great county here. We don't know exactly what's going on tonight, Father, but if you could reach down and comfort Pat and Robert and whatever you need to do to let her come home, we would really appreciate that, Father. And we thank you so much for the life that you've given us, for the health you've given us, for a great land to live in, and a home that's waiting for us when that time comes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. No report, Public Safety. No report, Public Works and Planning Committee. Steering Legislative Governmental Committee. Chairman Harris, you're recognized in the well.
Thank you, Commissioner Gooch. Well, gentlemen, we're halfway mark, so congratulations. I have a lot, so I apologize, and I'll try to be as quick as I can, but these are some important matters. The first thing on our agenda is a resolution for liquor by the drink. This resolution, which was passed by the steering committee 6-1, is not asking you to agree or disagree. It is for us to have a referendum put on the November ballot and allow the citizens to vote for it. So I know this is a controversial subject, but I had brought this up because we had a couple things that happened that I don't know if most of y'all don't realize, but we can get 100% of the tax in the unincorporated areas to the county instead of sharing it. Right now, we had a population in the unincorporated area based on 2020, estimated at 100,000 people. Murfreesboro has 140,000 people. During that time, Murfreesboro has received $1,142,000 in mixed drink revenue. At that point, the unincorporated areas of Rutherford County has received $5,685, and Eagleville, which passed this, received $5,815 with a citizenship of 722. I also want to inform this county commission that the Hall tax, which is a tax on investments, will be expiring after this year. And that number is around $230,000. So what I'm trying to do is to find a way to increase our revenue. I'm also trying to improve economic development. So I feel like that this county would be able to not have to travel to Murfreesboro and all the other cities if we would be able to get restaurants in those surrounding areas. Most restaurants will not go in those areas unless they have liquor by the drink. Again, I am not asking you to be yes or no. It's simply to allow the citizens to make this decision. I will read this resolution. Whereas the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners continually researches revenue streams such as liquor by the drink that are not directly aligned with the increase in tax rates, that by design put additional obligation on payers of property taxes. Whereas liquor by the drink revenues can be a catalyst for new business opportunities and can provide significant investment in economic development in county areas. Whereas certain restaurant establishments and municipalities are permitted to seek approval for liquor by the drink, while those same type of establishments are not permitted in the county areas of Rutherford County, placing these restaurant establishments at a competitive disadvantage. Whereas revenue collected from liquor by the drink taxes in municipalities are not shared with the county area of Rutherford County, and whereas provides that a county legislative body, by adoption of a resolution by 2/3 vote, may direct the election commission to submit a question by referendum to the qualified voters as to whether the sale of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises shall be permitted in county areas of Rutherford County. Whereas Tennessee TCA Code 574103 provides that referenda can be scheduled to be held with the regular November general election and can be achieved by 2/3 majority vote by this Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. Whereas, should a referendum on the question be successful, then sale of liquor by the drink beverages for consumption may be permitted on the premises that have received proper licensing from the Tennessee Alcohol Beverage Commission to the extent permissible under Title 57 of Tennessee Code Annotated. Whereas, Rutherford County Board of Commissioners finds it to be in the interest of the citizens to call for a referendum on the question of whether sale of liquor by the drink beverages for consumption shall be permitted on the premises in county areas of Rutherford County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by a 2/3 vote of the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session on August 13, 2020, that the Rutherford County Election Commission shall be notified to place on the November 3, 2020 state and federal general election ballot the question of permitting the legalizing the sale of liquor by the drink for consumption on the premises within the county areas of Rutherford County. A certified copy of the resolution shall be filed by the Rutherford County Clerk with the Rutherford County Election Commission pursuant to TCA 57-4103. And be it further resolved that TCA 574103 provides at any such election, the only question submitted to the voters of the unincorporated areas of Rutherford County shall be in the following form, thus established by the Rutherford County Election Commission. First one, for legal sale of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises in Rutherford County or against. This resolution shall take effect from and after its passage. All resolutions in conflict herewith be and the same rescind insofar as such conflict exists. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Have a second. Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Gurley?
Yeah, I'd like a little clarification on this. The way I read it, you can answer this. This would allow establishment of places to sell alcoholic beverages, not just restaurants, but just a place that just sold alcohol. In other words, a bar?
Yes, sir.
It would allow that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to clarify, so I don't think that this deals with package stores or liquor stores in the county area. This is for on-the-premises consumption.
That's what I'm talking about. This would allow, to me, would be a difference. Yes, I agree that I'm thinking like the 840 Allenville Road area that's getting a lot of residential development and has already had areas that are zoned commercial services and so on out there. Restaurants out there to serve the citizens and so on that sold alcoholic beverages, I think would be different than just a bar. And all the problems that typically go along with establishment that just serve alcohol in and of itself. So I'm taking that this does not restrict between, say, a restaurant that sells alcohol at its premises and a premise that just sells alcohol.
The TCA does not differentiate between the two. It just speaks of this body's ability to put liquor by the drink, generally speaking, on the ballot for referendum and decision by the citizens. Now, mind you that any establishment that isn't already there, for example, somebody that wants to build a bar or start a bar, and they'd have to go through the planning process here with the county, et cetera, but you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? How will this affect well, I'm having a hard time determining what a restaurant and what's not. The convenience markets that serve hot food, sandwiches, burgers and stuff, was that going to qualify for a restaurant and allow that to be in those?
So remember that if this body approves this getting on the November ballot, and if the public votes to allow for the sale of liquor by the drink in the unincorporated areas, any establishment would still have to go and get an ABC license that is a state agency, and they'd have to meet their criteria for obtaining that license. I'm not an ABC lawyer. I think maybe Mr. Blair's son worked in some capacity at that agency. I might be
used to.
Assistant
Commissioner.
But they have certain requirements if it is a food establishment, and they weigh gross sales of revenue and food service sold. But they also would regulate the issuance of a permit for a non-food establishment like a bar.
You have any idea how many that would be possible to get this now, restaurants in the rural area? Do you have how many people we're targeting, how many businesses that could get this? How many restaurants are in the rural area?
Well, there's some restaurants or corporate that I talked to, an Applebee's, you know, and one of the things that they reiterated me is that the reason they don't want to build anything in the county because they can't sell liquor by the drink. So I feel like, and again, Commissioner, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm just simply telling you I want to let the people decide what they want to do, and you know, and answer this question that we've been asked for a lot of times. So that's all I'm saying. But to my understanding, economic development, that restaurants want to move into the county areas, but they want to have liquor by the drink.
Okay, thank you.
Have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Phillips?
One more question. It requires a 2/3 positive vote. Does that mean 14 yeses, even though we're number of people?
Is there anybody that's still in the building that just isn't in this room? Or is everybody, I know that Mr. Gammon may have left, but at any rate, it's those that are still here. So if there are, how many here, 18 here?
Be 2/3.
Then it'd be 2/3 would be 12.
Oh, we don't have to have 14 votes, we have to have 12 votes.
That's correct. Any other discussion? It was discussed like what is happening in Christiana we've got a subdivision of over 1,000 homes going in, another right down the road of 200 homes. You'll start seeing, as our county continues to grow, large developments, and those establishments, I don't see just bars anymore. When you put $3-4 million into an establishment to serve food like an Applebee's or Chili's or some location like that, there's no way that they can make it on food alone because there's so much waste in the food business. It's the alcohol revenue, but like Commissioner said, 100% of those tax dollars will come back into the coffers of the county and not shared with any of the municipalities. But there again, like he stated, the chairman stated, this is only giving the people the right. You're putting it on the ballot to let the people decide. It's not whether your personal concerns or convictions or issues with it. All you're doing is voting yes or no to let the people decide whether to allow it. So that's what your vote is tonight. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P? Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
No.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is probation recovery court license. What this is, commissioners, is that Commissioner Irvin was, when he had passed away, the mayor had changed to 2 departments instead of 1, which is recovery court and probation, and we had to have license. So we have 1 license, we need 2. We can either purchase those licenses, or we can have the mayor in his office licensed, and it would be under both of them. We took this under advisement from probation and recovery court, and they both agree that they would like to see the mayor had the license and then be under his umbrella. So the resolution is, whereas license with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services for DUI school is currently in the name of the Rutherford County Recovery Court only. And whereas since issuance of said license, the Rutherford County Recovery Court and Probation Services have been separated into different departments, with a director being appointed to each department, both of which are under the county mayor's office. And whereas in the interest of efficiency and cost, it is appropriate that says license should be under Rutherford County government and specifically the county mayor's office. Now therefore be it resolved in the Rutherford County Board of Commissions that the appropriate officials be authorized to execute any necessary documents, including the form attached hereto as Exhibit 1, to change the license with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services for DUI school to Rutherford County government under the county mayor's office. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Reed, any discussion, comments? Seeing none. Without objection, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
17 yes, motion passes.
Next on the agenda is an agreement, interlocal agreement for emergency medical agency manager. What this is that each municipality is supposed to give a certain percentage to the salary of our emergency management agency, and they have had only a handshake. And this is a agreement which we need to approve, which simply says that we have to pay 50% of his salary, in Murfreesboro to pay 30%, Smyrna 11%, Laverne 8.5%, and Eagleville 0.5%. Whereas Rutherford County has appointed a public safety director who serves as the county's director for the Rutherford County Emergency Management Agency pursuant to TCA 58-2-110. Whereas the municipalities within Rutherford County, which include the city of Murfreesboro, the town of Smyrna, the city of Laverne, and the city of Eagleville, collectively do not have their own emergency management programs and therefore are served by Rutherford County EMA. Whereas the county and the cities have had an existing informal cost-sharing agreement whereby each party contributes a prorated allocation of the salary, benefits, and retirement contribution costs of the director. Whereas the interlocal agreement to fund the local emergency management agency director's salary in Rutherford County, Tennessee, attached hereto is Exhibit 1, the contents of which are incorporated herein in length and is set forth verbatim, would ratify the existing cost-sharing agreement and more formalize the continuation of the sharing in the salary, benefits, and retirement contribution costs of the director of the RCMA between the county and the cities. Whereas the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners find it to be in the interest of the citizens of Rutherford County to enter into this interlocal agreement attached hereto as Exhibit 1. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County be and hereby are authorized to enter into and execute the interlocal agreement attached hereto as Exhibit 1 for and on behalf of Rutherford County, subject to the approval of the county attorney. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Have a second? Commissioner Rather on the second. Comments, questions? Commissioner Cush.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as far as the formula breakdown to the stakeholders, the participation percentage, is that based on population, based on area, landmass? How do you recall what the percentage
To
is?
my understanding, Commissioner, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's a formula that we have used for years. Now, where they initially came up with it, I'm not sure. But it's one that, I mean, I could go back to the 80s.
This first came up when I got a call from Town Manager Hercules and Jeff Peach, the attorney, and they started looking and really there wasn't anything in writing that's renewed. And so everybody started looking, all the cities started looking to see if they had anything, and nobody had anything. And fortunately, Lisa, she was able to find somewhere in the minutes, it went back to the late 70s, early 80s?
80s, 85, 86.
So that would have been probably Waldron and back when we were moving from rescue squads, right?
Well, when Rutherford County moved originally, when I got involved in 1975, was working for what was then State Civil Defense, which became TEMA. I was also involved here with Rutherford County Civil Defense. And of course, as we all know, Defense Civil Preparedness Agency became FEMA. State Civil Defense became TEMA, and Rutherford County Civil Defense became REMA. And so somewhere in the early 80s is when that took place and when the sharing and so on was formulated.
So basically,
I wasn't an elected official then, but I was involved with the state and everything, and it was typical for the cities, but as most things back then, a lot of stuff was done just on the handshake.
Handshake between the mayors at that time. That probably would have been Sam Ridley and Waldron and
Mankin.
Mankin
here.
Yeah, I bring it up because if it's a 35-year-old look in the crystal ball and divvy it up, then if it's, I mean, these areas have certainly grown in population in 35 years. I just wonder if some maybe need to contribute a little more than they did in the 35-year-old handshake. That's the only reason I bring it up.
I asked Mr. Reed if he wants to go out to Eagleville and see if the increase out there. But for right now, I think we just need to put something in writing to where every government will have something in writing, and then it maybe next year we take a look at that as far as more participation. But got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
17 yes, motion passes.
Next on the agenda is Cigna Insurance wanting to offer certain incentive programs. I'll read the resolution. Whereas Cigna provides health insurance services and products to the county as a benefit to the county employees, and whereas Cigna offers certain incentive programs, including Motivate Me program, whereby county employees can obtain a discount on their health insurance premium by meeting certain incentives and other requirements as outlined in the program. Whereas Cigna has made certain program enhancement recommendations to the county's current insurance service and products as outlined in PowerPoint presentation attached in Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as set forth herein at length verbatim. Whereas adding such program enhancement recommendations to the insurance service and products being delivered to the county employees come at no additional cost to the county. And whereas these program enhancement recommendations were presented before the Benefits and Insurance Committee and obtained unanimous favorable approval. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the program enhancement recommendations as reflected on the PowerPoint presentation attached hereto in Exhibit 1, which come at no additional cost to the county, be and the same hereby are approved for inclusion in the insurance services and products provided to county employees. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Johnson. On the second, any further discussion? All right. Without objection, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes. I'm declaring Rule 10, but voting yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
17 yes, motion passes.
The next is a flexible spending account rollover amount to be increased from $500 to $550. Whereas Rutherford County currently provides its employees the opportunity to participate in a health flexible spending agreement for their qualified medical expenses. And whereas IRS Notice 2020-33 details modifications to the use or lose rule for health FSAs, allowing $550 of unused amounts remaining at the end of a plan year in a health FSA to be paid or reimbursed to plan participants for qualified medical expenses incurred during the following year. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the County IRS Section 125 plan document be amended to include the carryover provision of $550 for health FSAs beginning with the 2020 calendar year, and further that the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County be and hereby are authorized to execute any necessary documents to officiate such amendment. Resolved this 13th day of August 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion, have a second. Second, Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Blair. Any further discussion? Seeing none, without objection, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes. Rule 10.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Rule 10.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
17 yes, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, what was that final count on the liquor by the drink? Missed it.
Final count, it was not
It was
stated.
16 yes, 1 no.
16 yes, 1 no on liquor by the drink. Any further discussions? Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, I'm sorry. I forgot, if I have not told all commissioners, we had given you a sheet for your list of committees, and if you can, before you leave, give that to me. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, turn your sheet in, Commissioner.
I have a question for the attorney. On
Yes.
the Cigna incentive program, I voted yes, but since I'm a retired employee, should I invoke the Rule 10?
If your conscience believes that you cannot vote, then you can abstain from voting. But with respect to statute, I wouldn't say that you have a statutory conflict of interest, because you'd only have that if it's increasing your benefits. This is just increasing the ability of you to contribute more of your own money to an SHSA account.
really
So it's not really increasing your benefits.
It's
But
really
he can vote yes and declare Rule 10.
Sure. I just don't want to wind up at 940 Salem Highway.
Okay, members, that brings us to item M on the calendar. The body will move into executive session so we can hear from our legal counsel on a matter. I will ask all guests to please vacate the chamber until we can have executive session. Okay, members, we are back in session. We'll come out of executive session. Thank you so much. We're going to look for statements and announcements and then into any other business. Statements and announcements. I believe Commissioner P was going to talk about tonight, and we're still thinking about him, but Kittrell Ham Breakfast is this Saturday at Kittrell Fire Department. I'll make that on his behalf. Commissioner Gurley.
I was just going to ask, do you have any update on Commissioner Jernigan?
Okay, so last I heard that he was, Kay was looking for someplace. He's ready to move out of the hospital. I believe Mac told us his brother works for him out at Haley Road, and they were looking to get him into a longer care facility. So health-wise, they say his body's well. You know, he was at one point 20% survivability rate. They took him off. He's breathing on his own, so it's going to be probably a long road for recovery. So just keep him in your prayers as well. Any other statements and announcements? Any other business?
I'm sorry, commissioners, you're going to kill me.
We've got the amendment.
I'm sorry?
We've got the CARES amendment and under other business.
Got the CARES amendment, and Commissioner, go ahead.
Is this with the local government support? Is this what you're talking about?
The big CARES money.
What I want to do is, we talked about this on the government support grant, and I know that time's coming up.
I'm sorry?
Good? Do I keep talking or I sit down?
No, we're good. There's two different grants. One's a CARE grant. You're asking about the local government grant?
Yeah, because what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get these things done, and I know that we're under a time frame, so I'm going to make a motion. I want to allow the mayor's office to move forward with working with the department, and a lot of these things are deferred maintenance, so like roofs, and we got to get these things done, and we're under a time thing. So, Mayor, I would like to see that we go ahead with the numbers that you gave us last month, and I'd like to make a motion to approve these and to get these deferred maintenances going.
Got a second? Discussion?
Most of these are one-time expenses and not reoccurring expenses. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. It's like the roof at Journeys, the roof at the Sheriff's Department.
Air conditioning at the Paul Center?
I'm sorry?
Air conditioning at Paul's?
We're getting quotes on Paul's, Goldstein's building, phone system at the Health Department, We're going to try to transfer that over to the CARES grant, which is larger than this grant. But let's take the motion before us. Still, after the list of all the departments, we still have $766,000 left from that large grant that we can still use for things in the future, but this will take care of those needs that we can go ahead, like paving and around the courthouse, et cetera. Let's go ahead. Any further discussion on that grant? That's the local governmental support grant. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Piercy? Commissioner Rather? Commissioner P? Commissioner Cook? Yes. Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
No.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Now we move on to the CARE grant. Now the CARE grant is larger than this grant. It was $4.8 million, I believe.
$4,873,350.
The issue here is that it has to be COVID related. We called in all of our department heads this past week. There was a very short time table that submissions have to be made. And we had all the department heads here to help us as our brain trust determine what can be, and we're going to try to run it through finance, through Reba. She's our expert on our grants, and also using Carrie.
Right, but this, we're asking to put in another grant coordinator to help us get through this. It's for expenses incurred during the period March 1 and ends on December 30th. The expenses have to be submitted by November 1. We have to substantiate those expenses that may be paid in December, but we've got to go ahead and send it through. The difficulty is identifying those things that are COVID related specifically for these kind of purposes and get it purchased and on hand by November.
That's a real short window to spend that kind of money. That's why we ask all the departments to come in and help us, and we're trying to think outside the box, from software to security to thermal scanning for temperatures, one-time expense type things that all of our departments could use, PPEs, anything that is COVID related.
There's, we've got the COVID related, we've got this grant, we've got the one that Commissioner Harris was speaking of, then we've got the public assistance grant. We've got a lot of grants, and then you saw the fire one that came through. And by the way, that amendment as written was correct. The difference in the money was because we were able to apply about $4,000 from the prior year in. So both numbers were right, talking about the whole grant, and the amendment is right. Side note. But with this one, this is the weirdest amendment that I've ever come up with. It helps for another position, a grant position that will be funded by the grant, and some part-time help, because it is a lot of, for every line that goes into a grant of an expense, there is a justification that has to be written about why it relates to the grant. We talked about the phone system at the health department. The number that we've got in here, the communications equipment, that's kind of what is in mind. And then Dana would like to, if we can, take care of her phone system in the Smyrna office. So that's what that number. The line that I've got equipment in is 3 ambulances that will have UV, the UV lights. Like I said, that's COVID related. Those expenses that when we were shut down in April and we sent people home to be on standby, we've coded all that time and we're going to ask for that money back, where people are on, like Dana's people that, anyway, I don't want to bore you, but there is a lot of expenses that we've got to hurry and work through. The pot, you'll see in other charges, $3,933,000. I don't know what the expense, where the expense is going to lay. Do the expenses, I do want to code it correctly. We'll come back and then move the money where it needs to be. But we've got to have money in a budget to be able for the mayor to start issuing purchase orders on these things that we can identify, because we've got to get it ordered and get it here.
Commissioner Gurley.
I'm glad to see both on the accounting part and on possibly on the part-time personnel. I was going to suggest we find somebody, if we can, having been involved once again at the state and the local level in EMA, when you get these grants, they're especially when they're designated for a particular purpose, it's important to be able to justify that purpose, and you have to sometimes think out of the box in order to do that. And so maybe we want to think about, if we can, find a person who's has some background in that, and allow them to be innovative, because there's a lot of things. PPE comes to mind, but there's a lot of other things that you cannot respond to COVID unless you have those things. So we've got, at the same time, we don't want to get crucified on the back end and wind up having to repay this.
Well, we don't want to come back. We don't want to submit something and then come back and it's turned down and have to ask the commission to pony up and pay for that. We want to make sure that what we put down is pretty
right
solid.
In the beginning. So I'm going to make a motion we approve this. Most of this is in the other charges, which gives us flexibility, but just a thought, having dealt with grants before, that this is it's critical that we get those right justifications and that we think outside the box. Well, so I move to approve this as submitted.
Thank you. Is there a second? Got a second. Yeah, I'll just comment that finding someone who is a grant writer, they're rare, and who has them hired, they're usually not out looking for jobs. So maybe we can pull, I've reached out to Cody. Cody still has a lot of connections to the Secretary of State's office. It might cost us a little bit more to get somebody to, maybe they're tired of traveling to Nashville, or if they're living in Smyrna or wherever. But I
envision it's going to be, that person is going to be working between EMA's office and finance office.
Okay, any further discussion? Commissioner McAdoo?
Will this include the school system?
They've got
have their own bucket of money.
And specifically, now I will tell you, because this stuff is coming left and right, but it specifically is that we can't give them the money. Now, I will say, for Doug, if we have any money left that we're not going to use, we could buy stuff on behalf of schools, but we can't send the money to them. So he's like, now they've got a pot of money too, but they're big. So,
but distance learning, those type of things, laptops, Wi-Fi, we're thinking outside the box. What is COVID related? Well, distance learning. People who don't have Wi-Fi in their homes. In order to connect, if we give them a laptop, they can't get connected without the Wi-Fi. So ultraviolet lights and air conditioning systems, those are all things we're looking at everything we possibly can with a short window. So have a motion. Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Allen. I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I can completely appreciate the urgency and the importance of this. I guess my question is there a reason that we couldn't have maybe a special called budget meeting so that the commission has some oversight? I'm very reluctant at the end of a 4-hour meeting to just write a blank check for millions of dollars of grant money. I just feel like we're abdicating our responsibility for oversight by doing it this way.
I don't have a problem with that at all, Commissioner. We're just trying to move as rapidly as we possibly can. And we'll talk to Chairman P. But we chose, they gave us an option to pull down 30% of the 4.8 million, and we chose not to because we had to have information submitted by the end of August.
Well, no, it's if you could take that's on this. That's behind this information I gave you. It was this chart that tells you how much that we have. We can ask for 30% of it. But if we don't turn around and submit enough expenses to take care of that 30%, the 1,462,000 by end of September, then they reallocate the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's like if you can't spend 30% right there, then, so, we've decided it's better for us to fund it and seek reimbursement. But at the same time, I don't want to expend money without knowing that it's already gone through FEMA, because this grant kind of has to go through them too, that it's an expense that they will cover.
I'll be happy to talk to Chairman P. to call a meeting, but we still need to be moving forward until that meeting can occur. I mean, she needs to start looking for a grant coordinator position.
I guess could I, if we hold off, could we at least do the part of the amendment that has the personnel so that we can put the COVID-related grant person and put it out tomorrow? Was my intent is to post that position tomorrow, because that's going to take time to get somebody.
Yeah, I would just like to comment. I realize what Commissioner Allen's saying, but having dealt with these grants, and we probably not only need someone from, like you said, it's going to have to be someone who has emergency management grant administration type of skills, who's done some of this. They're going to be hard to find. A couple of people over in the existing EMA office have had some experience along that line.
Carrie's got that part, and then finance, and Reba's got that part.
Both working together. Reba and Carrie are working together.
If you don't get that right, and the time that it's got to go back from our EMA to TEMA to FEMA, and then by the time we play around with it, we will run out. I mean, I've been in the position of having to turn back grant monies, and we don't want to really have to do that. We really don't want to. We can always come back, let budget talk about this, and we can do a budget amendment. We're really just accepting, for the most part, other than the position right here, which needs to be already hired, in my opinion, because this is August. We got to have this all done by the end of December.
Actually, November 1.
We got $3.9 million here that we can play around with, that budget next meeting can talk about how best to do, if they have any better ideas about what's COVID related and what's not. If this is not COVID related, don't even think about it. But if you don't have an idea of what it takes to respond to the COVID, then you're kind of wasting your time. So really and truly, I think we need to go ahead and approve this tonight, and then let budget talk about it if they've got some better ideas on it. But we need to have already had these people on board, really and truly.
We will be as transparent when it comes to budget time. We'll outline everything that we've done step by step. We just need to be moving forward, and that's all we're asking for tonight, is permission to do that.
And what we've identified that's directly COVID-related are those ambulances, the telephone systems for the health department, and all that leave that we have expended in April. I did that this past weekend, and it's over $600,000 that I intend to apply to this.
Got a motion and a second.
Why are they
Discussion.
giving us just a short amount of time to get all this stuff done?
I have no idea.
Wait,
I have no idea.
the governor didn't give us the money until a week ago.
I know what I'm saying. Why give us a couple of weeks to do all this stuff?
It was he awarded made the announcement $115 million to be divided.
Yeah.
They sent out the list. We've been on town hall meetings with the folks in Nashville, listening, and Murfreesboro's getting a bucket. We're getting a bucket. Schools getting a bucket. I mean, money's just coming everywhere, but they don't give you any. We're almost handcuffed, and to try to make sure that we're getting our share. We don't want to turn it back in, like Commissioner Curdy said.
And I don't even see how we're going to have time to even hire. You said a part-time grant writer?
Oh, no, I like a full-time grant writer who can bring it in, that might be doing it for
Do we
several.
even have time to hire anybody?
Well, it's either that or sit on the sideline. We're willing to throw the ball.
He announced on July 20th.
Commissioner Cook.
At one time, we had a grant writer.
We still have
she
one.
retired.
We got one.
We
Got
still
Reba.
have one.
And if we do have a grant writer now?
Yeah,
Yes.
Reba.
Well, why can't we lay out some of the things that this is what we need to do, and this is what it needs to be done by? And we need to put some directions out and quit dragging our feet.
Well, honestly, that's how this stuff has been coming out. This is, if y'all have been paying attention and seeing how many grants are coming through, you've got a fire one, the one that we talked about tonight, that one's come through. You've had all of these, and all of these are having strict deadlines. And so it's not just this grant, but it's
We're scrambling.
the others.
I know we've had several grants to come up.
With these deadlines, I've never said, those that have lived through the American Recovery Act and all the grants that came through that was another nightmare.
Well, they're throwing money at us like crazy. The federal government, the state government is just trying to stimulate the economy because this country has never been through anything like this. Our communities have never been through anything like this. So these are unusual times. We're just we're trying to make sure that we get as much as we possibly can with what we've been given.
The difficulty has been to maximize the grants. I will give you, for instance, we purchased as an emergency purchase those 14 UV lights in the very beginning.
In March. We got them in 3 weeks ago. They came from Scotland. It took that long to get them.
But we had 3 different pots of money that we could use that purchase for. So some of the money would cover 100% of it. One group of money would only cover 75% of it. So it's like, okay, now which one are we going to use this for? So anyway, that's what we've been working
We got a motion
through.
and a second. I'd like to call the question.
Motion to call the question. Well, not really, because I didn't recognize it. If you want to be legal about it, but question's been called.
Who was the second?
Vote to call the question. Carol on the second. Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Rather, Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
No.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
No, but it's going to pass anyway.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
11 yes.
Motion passes. Back on the question, on the motion and seconded. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Rather, Commissioner P, Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Jernigan, Commissioner Cush, Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
No.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
11 yes.
Motion carries. Anything else to come before this body tonight? For the good of the order, motion to adjourn. Stand adjourned.